Guys, we're talking about writing in this particular session of the closed group bubble. Yeah. And particularly, we're doing Cambridge 15. So these two are Cambridge 15. Wait. Let me fix that there. So these two together, these two tabs together are Cambridge 15. So what we're doing is we're scouring this document, Cambridge 15, and we're looking at the writing task. And then we're looking at the model answers. There's the model answer. And then I will explain it to you why this person only scored a band 6. There. Most likely, the reason why this person scored a bad 6 is because of language errors. That's just a suspicion. Let's see if that's going to be confirmed. So, as I was saying a while ago, this is a survey on measuring the coffee and tea buying and drinking habits in 5 cities in Australia. I wonder why people do surveys like this. I mean, what's the value of knowing? Anyway, so like what I mentioned, there are 4 attributes to task 1 writing, and so we call that the cont. CONT. Maybe we should call it a cont. But it's easier to remember when we call it the cont. And then, so the cluster, C is for cluster, O is for overview, N is for nominals, T is for tensing. There, the tense. So these are the 4 attributes, 4 key attributes. So if you get any one of them wrong, any one of them, just one of them, that's 6.5. If you get both, if you get 2 of the 4 attributes wrong, that's a band 6. That's how easy it is to score. And so on and so forth. If you get 3 of them wrong, that's a 5.5. If you get all of them wrong, that's a band 5. And so if you notice from the attributes, by the way, guys, this is a lesson in video 19. So apart from watching this video, you can also proceed to video 19, where this was discussed in detail. And then if you notice among the 4 attributes, these are the language related criteria. And these are the content related criteria. So for language, for example, in every sentence, the 2 critical elements there are the verbs and the nouns. So the nouns are represented by the nominals. The verb is represented by the tense there. So they form half of the attributes. Meanwhile, when it comes to content, cluster is your ability to group similar information together. It's kind of like abstract detection skills, making sense of abstract information. Can you find something that's clusterable? Can you find a pattern there? And then if you do find a pattern, then that leads to the overview, okay, which is a sentence or 2 that summarizes the entire graph. So as we were doing a while ago, the pattern I can see 3 patterns. So the first pattern we can see is these gray bars, regardless of the city, appear to be always high. So these gray bars stand for people who went to a cafe or coffee or for coffee or tea in the last 4 weeks. So that's gonna form our first cluster here. Meanwhile, when it comes to buying fresh coffee in the last 4 weeks, represented by the black graph, and buying instant coffee in the last 4 weeks, I think this is the 3-in-1 thingy, represented by the checkered graph. They appear to be quite similar. They're somehow close to each other. So like this one. But for these 3 cities, there is a wider discrepancy. See, there. That's why we had the second cluster. Number 2 cluster is we will cluster these 2. And then the third cluster is we will cluster these 3. That's what you call a cluster. Okay. Again, like I mentioned earlier, it may look intimidating, but if you come to think of it, everything has the same pattern. The gray bars have the higher values. The black and the checkered bars have lower values. There. Okay. Uy, pa-mute. Okay. So now, and then let's now go into the nominals first. So the percentage of city residents. So all of these are nouns. Okay, so make sure you don't get the numerical figures wrong. Because if you get that wrong, guys, I tell you, magbaband 4 na kaya. Okay, what a tragedy. Okay, so it's clearly indicated as percentages of city residents. So can you imagine almost 3 and 4, correct? 60%, 30, 60, 90. It's almost like 75%. Wait, uh, 20, 40, 60. 3 out of 5 people in Sydney and Melbourne prefer having coffee in coffee shops. There. Then let's look at the ones in the bottom. So all of these are cities. So all cities are capitalized. So there is no city that you cannot capitalize. So make sure you capitalize all of that. Okay. And also be careful. You don't want to say that 60% of Sydney drinks coffee in a coffee shop. You should be careful with the way you phrase it. 60% of residents of Sydney, that's how you should say it, not Sydney itself. Okay. Those are nouns, nominals. Coffee and tea, these are all nouns. Buying and drinking habits, there, Australia. And then the tense. Okay. So let's not get the tense wrong. Every verb has a tense. I mean, every sentence has a tense. Every sentence is a verb, and every verb has a tense. So if you get the tensing wrong, oh, you're gonna like, you're just gonna kill the essay. So initially, when we discussed this the last time, we were thinking of the present tense. Like these are what, because we were looking at the habits, right? These are what these people generally do. Like they generally buy, I did generally go to a cafe. But, and then suddenly we saw these bought in the last 4 weeks. So clearly the tense now changes. Everything has to be in the past. Okay. So these are habits in the last 4 weeks. Careful with the tense. Okay, so now we have the cont, C-O-N-T. Let's now look at, are there any questions in the meantime? Show the results of a survey about people's coffee, tea buying, drinking habits in 5 Australian cities. Are there any questions? No questions? Okay, let's now look at the model answer. And then there is a examiner comment. Okay. So let's rationalize this, guys. By the way, for Saki and for Erica and Mandy and Kate, so you just enrolled, guys, and you're just starting your writing. This is like jumping into a future lesson. Makinig lang kayo, ha? Yan. But you can always go back to this lesson if you want to. Okay. So the table depicts the outcomes of a questionnaire of how often people buy and drink different types of coffee in Sydney, Melbourne. Okay. Is it correct how they said that? How often people buy and drink different types of coffee? I think it's better to say how people buy and drink coffee, not different types of coffee. Because this is not a type of coffee, right? That is a type of coffee, fresh coffee, and then instant coffee, but the third one is not there. So never mind. Okay. The first option is Okay, so the overview is not here. He's already straight in his body paragraph. This is the overview right in the bottom, but you can also alternately put the overview up there if you want to. Yeah. Let's read the overview. In conclusion, the highest number of the survey is the percentage of city residents that went to a cafe for coffee or tea in the last 4 weeks. Okay. Yun da. Because it shows almost the highest percentage in 3 types. So as we can see from the overview, among the 3 possible overviews, dito lang siya nag-focus sa highest. Yun. Okay. Let's see the body paragraph. The first option is bought coffee in. Okay. So mali na yung phrasing no guys. Parang as expected grammar to. So maybe the first option, I wonder how you should phrase that. Maybe the first finding reveals. Or maybe with regard to the option of buying fresh coffee in the last 4 weeks. Ganon. Mali ang sasabihin mo, bought fresh coffee. This is now what you call a nominal flaw, no, guys? Kasi ang tendency sa nominals, guys, is gagayahin niyo yung nominals doon. Remember, guys, do not do that, no? Kasi, I mean, be careful of that. Pagdating sa nominals, ang pumapatay sa estudyante is many times gagayahin nila yung nominal doon sa graph. Kaya lang remember that the language in a graph is different from a language in an essay. Kaya hindi parating applicable yun, ha? O yun kinopy-paste niya. The first option is bought coffee in the last 4 weeks. So, mali. Yun. Okay. In Sydney, ayun. In Sydney, there's a better way of saying it. Parang Sydney is the one drinking, buying. Sydney has 43 point... Ayun, Sydney has 43.7% of... ito tinanong to sa ano, di ba? Tinanong yan sa ating... by the way, Wednesday yung next ano natin, guys, webinar. Don't forget, with British Council. Tinanong yan sa British Council webinar. You can spell it that way or spell it together. It doesn't matter. Okay. Sydney has 43.7% of city residents and has almost the same amount as Melbourne, which is 42.2%. Brisbane and Adelaide have nearly the same amount, 34.2% and 34.4%. Next, Hobart has 38.3%. Okay, so ganun yung technique niya. No? Una, parang similar to our cluster. Yun. Then, the second line is bought instant coffee in last 4 weeks. Okay. Na naman. Another way of saying there is like, wait. Ang ano pala niya, guys, ito pala bought fresh coffee siya. So pag ganun ang cluster niya, black muna siya. Tapos checkered next. Tapos gray. Yun. Mas maganda yung sa atin kasi may nakita tayong pattern. No? Iba yung dito, iba yung doon. Kaya lang yung phrasing niya eh. Mali-mali yung phrasing niya. So Brisbane has 52.6%. Other two cities that have almost the same number are Adelaide, 49.8%, and Melbourne, 48.3%. Tsaka I think I gave this observation already. Parang masyadong pare-pareho yung numerical figures. Wala man lang variety. Di ba? Parang it's so mechanical. Walang range, you know? Parang all the way down, ganyan siya. The lowest number is 45.5% of Sydney and the highest is 4.1% of Hobart. It's a very parang bullet pointed description. I-bullet point mo na lang pag ganyan ka. The last option of the survey shows the percentage of city residents that went to a cafe for coffee or tea in the last 4 weeks. Oh, that's a really better way of saying it, you know. The percentage of city residents that went to a cafe for coffee or tea in the last 4. Ganyan. Dapat may da yun. Yun. Alam mo guys, mga superlatives like the last, the first, the best, the worst, the highest, the smallest, the fastest. Lahat yung may the. Mga superlatives. Lahat yung may the. In Sydney, people went to a cafe for coffee or tea in the last 4 weeks. At, maybe doon, at 61% of city residents. In Brisbane, citizens went to a cafe for coffee or tea in the last 4 weeks. At, parang every sentence, guys, na may mali siya. The lowest Adelaide. It shows 49.9% of city residents. In Hobart, people went to a cafe for coffee and tea in the last 4 weeks. At 62.7. The highest is Melbourne that shows 63.3%. So yun, talagang typically pag nakakita ko ng 6 sa taas 1, grammar yun. It's a grammar problem. Yun. Pero pag nakakita ako ng 6 sa taas 2, cardinal rule 2 error yun, which we will discuss later. So let's read the examiner comments. So examiner comments follow the trend of, ang unang sasabihin niya is task response or task accomplishment. These are the official criterion. And then next, coherence and cohesion. And then the third aspect is going to be lexical resource. And then the last aspect is going to be grammatical range and accuracy. Yan. Ganyan parati yung examiner comments. And so, parang it emphasizes that the content-related criteria are more important than the grammar-related criteria. Kasi una yung dalawang yun eh. So that kind of mirrors our attributes. So the cluster refers to task accomplishment, TA. Overview refers to coherence and cohesion. Nominals refer to lexical resource. And then tense refers to grammatical range and accuracy. So instead of using these 4 criteria, we made it more precise. Can't ang iisipin nyo. No? Kasi masyadong broad ang ganun eh. So this answer covers all 3 categories and shows a good level of grouping and comparison of information in each category. So that's really the cluster. No? The descriptions are supported by accurate data. So all of that is the cluster. Ito, this is the overview. Organization is clear, introduction and overview, 1 paragraph per category, and there's evidence of cohesive devices. The first option, the second line, the last option. Yun. Dito siya sa language papalya, guys. Vocabulary is generally adequate and appropriate for the task in spite of occasional errors. Questionnaire, almost. Okay. And then grammar. Grammar shows a mix of simple and complex sentence structures with a reasonable level of accuracy. A wider range of vocabulary and or grammatical range would help to improve the score here. Okay. So very easy to understand the band 6. Any questions? Ang haba, no? Ang haba ng writing niya. This must be like double the required, mga 300 words or more. Okay. Ultimately, okay lang kahit naka-band 6 kayo kasi kung band 7 yung task 2 nyo, ang net result ng combination ng dalawang yun, band 7 pa rin. Yun. So yeah, ultimately, it's okay if you hit band 6 for task 1. Kasi sa totoo lang, mahirap maka-band 7 sa task 1. If you get more than 3 mistakes, you're only allowed 3 mistakes, grammatical mistakes. If you exceed that, papalo na sa 6.5 yung score. 3 lang. Kaya mahirap maka-7 sa task 1. So, maybe we should look at this band 6 score as, an accomplishment. Di ba? Task 1 is tough. No? Okay lang yan kahit maka-band 6 ka doon. Basta huwag ka nang bababa ng band 6. Actually, pwede pa eh. Kasi if your task 2 is band 7 and your task 1 is band 6, ang net results ng dalawang yan is still band 7. If your task 2 is band 7 and then your task 1 drops to 5.5, bababa na rin to a 6.5, which is still a passing score. Yun. Kaya, I see a lot of 6.5s in the students. No? Kaya you can attribute that to task 1, maybe most of the time. No? Maybe attributable yun sa task 1 kasi ang daming language problems. Yun. Pero it's not the same with task 2. Kahit marami kang errors dito, pwede ka pa rin maka-7. So let's check out the task 2. In some countries, owning a home rather than renting one is very important for people. Why might this be the case? And do you think this is a positive or negative situation? So, I think I discussed this the last time, no? So we're discussing owning a home, no? And then renting a home. So pag sasagutin mo tong why might this be the case, sasabihin mo syempre bakit people prefer owning a home, di ba? Pero wag mong kalilimutan banggitin why less people prefer renting one. Eh kasi binanggit siya dun sa passage eh. So that's what you call cardinal rule 2. Pag hindi mo binanggit tong renting, that's hindi ka magbaban sa that. Okay? So maybe you can discuss the advantages of owning a home and then correlate it with the disadvantage of renting a home. Kung ano yung advantage ng owning a home, yun yung disadvantage ng renting a home. So, pag sinight mo yung advantage of owning a home, tuloy-tuloyin mo na. Tatawid ka din sa renting. Ano? Sasabihin mo, it's a disadvantage. Don't forget. Kaya ganyan mga two-part questions, huwag kayo sagot ng sagot, guys. Parang titingnan mo kung ano yung coverage. Hindi yung sinagot mo lang yung owning a home, pero wala kang binanggit about renting a home. Wala. 6.5 maximum yan. Even no matter how good your language is. And do you think this is a positive or negative situation? So of course, this refers to owning a home, no? Yan. Pwede mo nang deadmine si renting doon. Focus mo na lang yung owning. Is it a positive or negative situation? So remember the conjunction is or. So by its very meaning, you can choose not to discuss the negative or the positive. You may choose to just describe it in a positive way or you may choose to describe it in a negative way. Pwede rin naman i-discuss mo pareho. Okay. Pero remember guys, pag may pinasok kang negative, diniscuss mo tong negative, a general rule in task 2 writing is every problem should be resolved. Okay. So, diniscuss mo yung positive, tapos tumawid ka sa negative. So, don't forget na pag tinawid mo yung negative, kailangan i-solve mo yung problema ng negative. Hindi mo siya pwedeng iwang negative lang. So, tatanggalin mo lahat ng negative. Kaya tricky yung negative eh. Yung another word for this is like, do the advantages outweigh the disadvantages, di ba? Yung disadvantages dun, guys, that's a negative. It's a negative element. Or to what extent do you agree or disagree? So when you discuss a disagree, that's a negative element. Do you understand? Parang it's like It's like life, eh, no? Pag may nega sa buhay mo, you need to resolve it. Ganun din sa essay writing. You need to clean up the negative element. Okay. So, maybe what you should do is you should just discuss the positive. Huwag ka na pong tumawid ng negative or naman yung conjunction doon, eh, no? So, you have the choice. Yun. So, if you just discuss the positive and tapos na. Pero if you discuss the positive, crossover ka sa negative, kailangan mo pa yung solving negative, nagiging three-step process pa siya. In a nutshell, no? That's what you will be going through in the writing regimen, no? Si Saki, and then si Erica, si Maddie, and si Kate. Yun. So that is a general principle. That is a cardinal rule, no? Parang pag sinabing cardinal, guys, they are unbreakable. You cannot violate these rules. Those are cardinal rules. You need to eliminate all negative elements. Pero it's not about knowing the rule. It's applying the rule. Kailangan isulat niyo yung essay. Okay. And you need to write it like 20 times. Kaya Madi, tatapusin niyo yung 20 ha. May pangako ka ha. Madi. Kate. Kate.
Okay po, sir.
Tatapusin niyo ha. Gusto ko everyday kayo magsulat ha. Para 20 days
Yes
tapos
po,
na.
sir.
Oo, kasi kahit gaano karaming lecture yan, hindi kayo papasa unless you finish the 20 essays. Don't forget, bakit si Julia, yung kaibigan nyo, tinapos niya yung 20 essays ha? Tapos, tinapos din niya yung speaking niya, 8 rounds of speaking. No grade lower than 7 yun ha, si Julia. Ganun lang naman kadali. Okay. So, let's look at the model answer. Yeah. So remember, we're looking out for these keywords. So first, owning a home, and then renting one, and then we're looking out for the positive, and then alternatively, let's see if there are negatives as well. Yeah. Okay. In some countries, the ownership of people's home is an important matter. In these countries, it's very important to own your own home rather than renting it. It might be different for some, but for these people, it matters. Okay. Why is that the case? You might wonder. This is sort of an informality. Huwag kayong magaganyan. I think it is because your home is supposed to be exactly what it sounds like, your home. As a human, I think we long after having things to call our own. It doesn't matter what it is. Parang may pagka-informal yung style niya. Akala mo nagsispeaking. It doesn't matter what it is. Tsaka huwag kayo magko-contract. Bawal yan sa academic writing. You spell it out, does not. But humans will always want to claim ownership. This is nothing new. And it has been like this through human history. Like colonies, for example, which later, once again, became the same country as before, led by its own inhabitants. People will always want to be the one to decide what happens to them. And when you rent your home, ayun, at least pinasok na niya yung di ba, diniscuss niya yung advantage of owning your home, tinuloy niya into the negative of renting a home. You cannot even paint it without the owner's permission. If you as a person are renting an apartment, there might be a lot of stressors in life. A scratch wall can cause you a major headache because the wall was not yours. The bedroom you're currently sleeping in might not be available as long as you hope. Things happen in life, and maybe the next landlord will not want to have you as a tenant. In another perspective, not owning your home could be a relief when it comes to your finance. As a renter, you will not have to pay mortgage, take loans, or spend an awful lot of money on buying the property. You would not have to worry about the harsh market crashing. or a natural disaster destroying your expensive home. Guys, positive of owning a home yun, negative of renting one, negative of renting one. This is the negative of owning a home. And parang positive na rin yun of renting, di ba? Parang ganun. So, medyo may plus and minus siya for each side. Kaya lang, kung bottom line, as a human, I feel like we need to have a home and calling it your own can make that more special. I personally would rather own my house because then whatever happens, it is on me and no one else. So guys, alam mo, if I were to check this essay, so talagang malinaw, no? Like, owning a home siya, no? Yan. Sa akin, problemado yan kasi sinabi mo it's best to own a home pero nag-cite ka naman ng negatives doon, hindi mo naman na-resolve yan. Di ba parang naguguluhan ako, parang sabihin ko, di ba kakasabi mo lang kanina, di ba, na parang gano'n, bakit in favor ka of owning a home? Parang gano'n, So if I were to have checked this essay, sasabihin ko sablay ka doon, 6.5 ka doon. Yan. Siguro wag mo na lang i-negative yung owning a home. Tanggalin mo na yon. Anyway, it is a band 7, so we cannot argue with success. Pero do you understand what I'm trying to say? Parang your argumentatives, alam mo, writing an essay is like algebra. It's a series of plus or minuses. Pag may mga nega doon, tatanggalin mo yon. Iwan mo na tong nega ng renting, no? Kasi hindi ka naman in favor of renting. Iwan mo na yan. Pero itong nega ng owning a home, bakit pinasok mo yan? Di nagulo yung equation, nagkaroon ka tuloy ng negative result. Diba? Dapat hindi ka nagne-negative, dapat positive yung result. Yeah. Anyway, yun. Pero at least, at the very least, guys, what we can say is medyo magaling siya mag-cross from one item to another, no? So, dun siya ng positive of owning a home, tawid siya sa negative ng renting a home, dun pa rin siya sa negative, tapos tumawid naman siya sa negative of owning a home, na naging positive ng renting a home. Magaling siya sa gano'n na you can explore both sides. Hindi ka naman nalolost, no? Kasi maganda na yung paragraphing na susundan mo. Parang gano'n. At on the plus, that's good, no? The writer is able to explore a gamut of arguments related to these two factors, no? Without the reader getting lost. Ang issue ko na lang yung problem solver. So the candidate clearly explains why home ownership may be of importance to some people. She or he also explores the positive and negative sides of owning your home before putting forward his or her own opinion. So, ang issue ko lang talaga, yung opinion mo is not logical, no? Yan. Your opinion has to make sense. It has to conform to the laws of logic, di ba? It's like, being in a courtroom. I'm training you for that, eh. Parang gagawin ko talaga yung issue, sabihin ko 6.5 lang to. Pero okay na yan, 6.5, pasado na yun. The task is well addressed and ideas are explored in some depth. Ang ganda rin ng organization, no? Good use of cohesive devices and paragraphing the message is easy to follow. The range of vocabulary. So ito guys, yan, nakita niyo yan. Yan. Ito, from there up to that point, task response yan. Ito, coherence and cohesion yon. Ito naman, lexical resource is appropriate with examples of less common items, good use of collocations, claim ownership, a major headache. Yeah, that's nice. No? Pay mortgage, natural disaster, the bottom line. Oh, bottom line. Oh, gamitin ko kaya yung bottom line. There's a variety, and then this one is grammatical range and accuracy. Yan, a high level of accuracy. Oo nga, no? Hindi siya masyadong nagkakamali sa grammar. I guess, with exception to those contractions, no? Yan. Pero, okay lang yan. Hindi naman masyadong nakaka-apekto sa comprehension. Naintindihan mo pa rin naman. In fact, yun lang nakita kong SBA nyo. And then the rest, wala na. It's clean. Kaya siguro nag-7. Okay. O di kayo, kung magsulat kayo ng ganyan, di ba? Alam niyo naman yung writing yun. Lulupit niyo magsulat kaya. Di ba? Panis yung 7. Dapat hindi lang kayo nagsa-7. Dapat nakakita lang ng 8. Bakit hindi tayo mag-9 sa writing? Kayang-kaya natin yan. Oh. Ganyan lang yung tanong, owning a home. Panis! Di ba? Okay. Any questions? Let's go to another set. Any questions? And then let's do the listening. Oh my God, tingnan mo yung task 1 niya. Parang task 2 na haba. Woohoo! Any questions? Task 2 niya, band 6 lang. Baliktad. So, if your task 2 was band 6, your task 1 was band 7, ang net result niyan, band 6. Ang masusunod yung task 2. Damn, man. Sana hindi mo na masyadong in-effort yung task 1 mo. Dami naman, oh. Sige, let's check that out. Any questions? Uy, nagda-drown na ba si Saki tsaka si si Saki tsaka si Erica? Anyway, si Saki tsaka si Erica, mga more or less, marami na kayong napag-aralan eh, no? Di ba? Marami na kayong lectures na napakinggan, no? Di ba, Erica?
Sakto lang po.
Sakto lang, no?
Yes.
Like, you're not really beginners, you know? Di ba?
Siguro po.
Di ba?
We
Ganun din
tried.
naman si...
Yes po.
What were you saying, Saki?
Erica po. We tried lang.
Erica.
We tried lang po. Konti lang. Pero still may meron pa rin pong kailangan ayusin with the writing.
Okay. And then, when did you get that back? Galing sila sa previous review center, guys. So, maybe we shouldn't mention it na, no, Erica?
Yes po.
Yeah. Pero when did you get your essay back?
Actually po, with our second review center, we actually had one-on-one coaching, and then what I really didn't like was that they were not really correcting it. They were just putting what they wanted to put. Parang
I see.
I submitted, ano po kasi yun, live, Zoom siya na ipapakita niya sa akin yung ginawa ko, and then kung anong pwede kong ilagay. But then I really felt bad because strike through niya lang buong paragraph ko, and then she changed it with what she wanted. Kaya,
When did you submit the essay before that Zoom session? Was it the day before?
yes po. Actually, bibigyan po kami ng assignment, and then we have to submit it, and then the next day yung coaching with the...
Okay.
Yes.
All right. And then how many of that did you get?
Yung po kasing in-enroll namin is just one session for writing 1, and then another for writing 2. Bale, 3 po yung sinulat ko that time for writing 1 and writing 2.
Oh, you just paid for one task 1, one task 2. Ganun.
Kasali po siya sa parang bundle.
Kasama siya sa bundle. One,
yes.
tag-iisa lang.
Yes po. One session, pero 3 po yung topics na meron.
Okay.
So that's an hour of 3 topics.
That's not enough. Kulang na kulang yun. Dapat 20 yun.
Yes po, kaya po we decided to...
Kulang yun, I tell you. Kulang na kulang. Talagang hindi ka papasa with that limited amount of practice. Tapos, it's best if sana hindi na nila Zoom. Kasi it's a written essay. Doon na lang ilagay sa essay yung comments. Para you can read it again and again. Kasi kung i-discuss mo yun na Zoom session, hindi mo naman maalala lahat yun. Di ba?
Actually po, they send it naman after your
They
lecture.
send it. Okay.
Yes po.
They send it with the comments.
Yes po.
Okay. So ang kulang na lang talaga is the frequency of it, no? The frequency of it. Yun.
Yes po.
Not enough. Oo. Parang madali no? Hindi ganun kadali yan. Okay. Ayun, Caribbean island. So the graph below shows the number of tourists visiting a particular Caribbean island between 2010 and 2017. Sige, let's go to the count. Ano yung nominals? Ano yung tens muna? C, O, N. So ano yung tens? T. Alam mo, wag na lang nating tawagin count. Tawagin na lang nating continuation.
Okay yun.
Maganda kaya yung count.
See? You're the
Diba?
only one who calls it that one.
Hindi, para it's easy to recall, di ba? Don't forget the count. Anong tense? So clearly the tense
Past. It's past.
past. Tsaka alternatively, you can use the past perfect, yung mga had increased. Ganun. Para hindi naman masyadong simple past lang all that time. So, had risen. That's the past perfect tense. Pero you can also say the simple past, which is rose. Dito sa 2010. Rose. I-vary nyo, guys. Para may grammatical range. Yun, maganda kung may graph ka na papalo pa hanggang 2050, no? O, di ba? May future ranges pa, no? At which point, magiging future perfect tense na yan. Will. Sige nga, the future perfect. Will have, by 2050, tourist visitors will have risen further. Ang ganda nun ah. Will have risen. The future perfect tense. Yun. Actually, I enjoy line graphs. Tsaka gusto ko yung line graph, may ranges all the way up to the future. May projections pa. Di ba? Anyway. So, yun yung tense. Yung nominals natin. What's this? Oh, millions guys. Oh, millions yan ha. Baka sabihin mo, one visitor lang yun. Like, ano to? Half a visitor? Anong kalahati na ng katawan niya nandun? Ito like a quarter visitor. Ano yun? Para yung paalang nakarating. Anyway, million yan ha. At saka huwag nga i-copy paste yung millions na yan. Sasabihin mo, there were 1 millions of visitors. I tell you guys, do not do that. Iba ang nominal sa graph, iba yung nominal sa essay. So, 1 million lang. Yun. Kahit nakalagay doon, millions of visitors. Yun. So, 500,000 yun, 250,000 yun. Parang ganun. Ano pa? Visitors staying on cruise ships. Visitors staying on island. So, in an essay, may an island. Visitors staying on an island. And the total. Ooh, ang dali niya guys. Lahat paakyat. So, okay na yung nominals. Yun. Yung numbers lang yung problema. Yun lang yung trapper doon. Tsaka, a Caribbean island. A Caribbean island. Okay, yung cluster natin, malinaw na yung cluster, no? We begin with the square line, and then the triangle line, and then the circle line. So, parang pataas yung square. Uy, na-overtake niya yung ano. Guys, significant yung point na to, no? The point where the square lines overtook the triangular lines. Yan, it's worth citing that. Oh, so parang more people preferred to stay on the island than on a cruise ship. more people prefer to stay on a cruise ship than on an island towards the latter 2 years. Okay. Tapos nung pumalo yung 2020, nagka-COVID, kaya lahat yan bumagsak sa zero. Drop to zero. And then the combination of the two, you can clearly see that there is an uptick, a steady increasing trend. No? And in particular, this one is, you can consider this as a notable rise. A notable rise. Yeah. Okay. So, yun yung cluster natin. Ang dali lang. Tapos yung overview, kitang-kita na. No? So, in totality, it can be seen that both the number of visitors preferring to stay on cruise ships and preferring to stay on an island had seen similar rising trends, with the latter overtaking the former towards the latter 2 years. Parang ganun. Yun lang. Both visitors preferring to stay on cruise ships and visitors preferring to stay on an island had seen a steady increase, steady increase, with the former eventually overtaking the latter towards the latter 2 years of that. Yan yung overview. Yun. So parang I can now see that ang nangyari sa essay, inisa-isa ng writer yun. So, we should have discussed this, guys. So, ang ideal cluster is parang, for line graphs, you always begin at 0. No? So, parang I will cluster that. No? Yan. Parang one sentence yun, guys. It started at 250,000 and increased slightly to 500,000 before dropping back to the 2010 range. No? Tapos tatalo na ako doon, guys. Tatalo na ako doon. That's my next cluster. Diretso na yan. Yan. Tapos isisingit ko yung eto. Okay. So, one sentence for this, one sentence for that. And then, for visitors preferring to stay on an island, that's my first cluster. Tapos, my second cluster is this. Yan. Plateauing at the 1.5 million mark for the next 3 years. Ganun. And then, for the final 2 years, there had been a slight fluctuation ending at the same 1.5 million mark. So 1, 2, 3. Tatlo yung cluster points. And for the third, so you start here, tapos talon na ako doon, guys. Talon na ako doon. That's the first cluster. And then, however, in the final year, it is noticeable that there has been a marked increase in the number of visitors, numbering at 1 million in the span of a year. There. That's my second cluster. So for this combined graph, dalawa lang. That's one sentence yun, tapos one sentence. So yun ang cluster. Pero si writer, parang wala siyang cluster, parang inisa-isa niya yan. Parang sabi niya siguro, baka may minus points pag may na-miss ako. Baka may minus 3 points ako pag na-miss ko yung 2020. Parang ganun. Kaya ang haba ng essay niya. The graph displays the statistics of the number of tourists visiting a particular Caribbean island. I like the way he said that, a particular Caribbean island. Between the years 2010 and 2017. Period dapat yun. In the year 2010, there were 250,000 visitors that stayed on cruise ships, while another 750,000 visitors were staying on an island or the island that totals up to 1 million. Ano bang grade nito? 7 siya, ha? Magaling pa kayo dyan, no? Million of visitors. Ano ba yun? The following year, which is 2011, 500,000 visitors stayed on cruise ships. For the visitors who were staying on the islands. Huh? The graph doesn't show. Kasi walang kama eh. Kakama mo yan. For the visitors who were staying on an island, the graph doesn't show. And decrease or an increase because the number was the same as the previous year, which is 750,000 visitors. Bakit kayo nag-band 7? Ito dami-daming mali. Dapat 3 lang, 6.5 na yon. Lo. Total visitors for that year was 1.25 million visitors. Moving on, the number of visitors staying on cruise ship decreased to 250,000 visitors in the year 2012. Nasaan na ba siya? Yun, nandito pa lang siya. Kasi ngayon, isa-isa niya eh. While the number of visitors staying on islands increased to 1.250 people. This sums up to an amount of 1.5 million visitors that year. Talagang every year, no, iniisa-isa niya, guys. Yun. Masyado kang Boy Scout, ha? You know. Ano yan, all the way to 2017 yan, guys. In the year 2013, 500,000 visitors stayed on cruise ships while 1.5 million visitors stayed on islands. Bato, nainis ako sa mga ganyan. That adds up to 2 million visitors that year. During the next year, which is 2014, a total of 1 million visitors stayed on cruise ships, while the same number of visitors staying on island remained consistent, which is totaling up to 2.5 million visitors that year. For the year 2015, malapit na siya matapos. 1.25 million visitors were staying on cruise ships and 1.5 million tourists were staying on islands, showing no changes from the previous year. This is so mechanical. This is like a robot. The total of tourists in that year increased to 2.723 million visitors. The total number of visitors remained the same the following year, which is 2016, where it summed up to visitors on cruise ships. And oh my God, in the final year, 2017, the number of visitors staying on cruise ships and staying on island increased to 3. The graph showed an increase of 500,000 for the number of visitors. Ay, exhaust ako. Ito na yung overview, haba. Then through the years, the number
Sir
of
Junie,
yeah,
I thought it's just 150 words on this.
you can
For this,
actually
150
actually
words.
write more. Kaya lang, of course, that's
Ah.
gonna put pressure on your time.
Okay. Okay.
There's no deduction if you write more. Kaya lang, ideally, you should just write this for 20 minutes. Through the years, the number of visitors staying on cruise ships showed an unstable increase and decrease for the first 4 years, but continued to increase in the next year onwards. As for the number of visitors staying on the island, there was no progress or increase in the first 2 years, which are blah, blah, blah. The graph rose until it remained. Alam mo, ang maganda naman yung ano niya, no? Yung, ang ganda ng grammar niya. Nainis lang ako dito sa staying on island eh. Ulit-ulit. The number of visitors then slacked off in the year 2016, but managed to increase to the same level as the year before the previous in 2017. All in all, the graph showed an astounding performance for the total number of visitors throughout 2011, when it increased gradually every single year except from 2015, where it remained constant. Okay. This is a full and detailed description of the data contained in the graph, supplemented by a comparison of the variations in the numbers for the two types of visitors. Staying on the island kasi. Staying on island. There's a clear overview at the end of the description. Organization is fairly clear and progresses logically across a time period, although it could be improved by subdividing the rather long second paragraph. The range of vocabulary is wide enough to show some variety of expression. There's a high level of accuracy in grammatical control in both simple and complex structures, but there's an omission of a full stop between a first and second sentences and no capital letter to indicate the beginning of a new sentence. Hay nako. Huwag kayo ganyan magsulat. No. Yun. Sabi ni Jandy, gawan ko daw yung version ko. Grabe kayo guys. What page is that? 51. You're asking for the moon. Bibilisan ko lang guys. I will write it in 5 minutes.
Go. Let's time it.
I-time natin 5 minutes Oh,
No,
dali-dali
because I
lang.
want to see how you attack that certain essay.
Okay. Sige,
Thank
let's do it.
you.
Let's do it. There. I-snip natin siya. Okay. Open. Ano kay task 2 niya? Let's go snip. What's the task 2? Nobody would buy printed newspapers or books because they will be able to read everything they want online without paying. Okay, boring. Okay, so wait, let's open a new document for this one. That's my template page. And then snip natin yon. We will snip this one. Okay, snip natin yun. There. Okay. Yan. Then let's copy paste it to this Word document. Yon. Patience is a virtue. Patience is a virtue. Patience is a virtue. Yarn. Copy pasting. Patience is a virtue. Patience is a virtue. Patience is godlike. Regaluhan mo naman ako ng MacBook.
Kaya nga mag-exam tito para makapunta ng UK.
Yay.
Mag-exam ka, mauna ka pa sa akin. Di mauna ka din pupunta ng UK. Kaya ikaw na lang unang bumili para sa akin.
Oh. Baliktad kaya. Laki-laki na sweldo ng nurse. Okay. Malapit na yan, guys. Huwag niyo hihintayin kasi. Sheila, where would you want to go in the UK?
I'm not really sure.
Would you want to
Wherever
be in
the
a
work
city
is.
or
I mean, what?
would you prefer to be in a city or in the countryside?
City or countryside?
I think I'll prefer the city first. Because I want to explore Pay.
Oh, okay.
So, city first.
Okay.
You know, when you're first timer, you want to
Yeah.
explore the city, see the
Hindi,
sights.
you can explore naman before you start working. Oo, di ba? Pasyal-pasyal lang muna.
However, I don't have the cash, right?
Oh,
That's what I need the most.
hingi ko na kay mami.
Pala siya.
Okay. Okay. There, a survey was conducted between 2010 and 2017, measuring the number of visitors in a given Caribbean island. Particularly subdividing tourists who vacationed in a cruise liner versus those who spent time in an island. Okay, and then I'm already my overview, guys. There. In totality, what's that word that we checked out the last time? Yung purportedly. What word is that? Gagawin ko sanang word of the day. Ostensibly. Oh. Okay, I will use that word. Ha ha. In totality, all figures pointed to an increase with visitors. Sino ba yung mas malaki? Hindi ko na snip eh. I wasn't able to snip that part. Maybe I should make another snip. O hindi ko na snip yung part na yun. I'll make another snip. Ano yung square? Yun yung ano, island ba yun? Ano ba yung square? Cruise ship yung square. So more visitors there. Okay. Let's delete that. Let's replace it with that. All figures pointed an increase with tourists preferring cruise ships ostensibly. Ha ha ha! Where is counterpart? Counterparts, particularly towards the tail end of the survey. Okay, and then this is the fun part, guys. The cluster. Bridget is coming in. Yan. Uy, mga new students, araw-araw kaming ganito. Ang sipag namin, no? Grabe, no? O, daig ng masipag matalino. Yan. In detail, sumasama. Yan. In detail, for visitors whose preference were on cruise liners. Sheila, have you ever experienced a cruise liner? Never.
Never.
Oh, I
Don't
wanna
have the
experience
cash, the money, nada.
Wow. Yun. Pag nakarating tayo UK, mag-cruise tayo. Yahoo! Punta tayong Caribbean. Yahoo! Woot woo! The number of visitors started off at 250,000 in 2010. Then rising slightly, doubling after a year. Before declining back to 2010 levels by 2012. So, yun yung guys, yung sentence na to, yan, nakita niyo yan. So, that is represented by the abstract circle that we made. Yun. That's one sentence. Yung tatlong points na yun. Do you follow? And then, next sentence ko, tatalon tayo sa 2 million. And then, sisingit natin to. Okay? You understand, guys? That's how the cluster works. What is the chat all about? Ayun. Yeah, you can guess. You can use a guess or a traveler. Yan, sige, let's use those terms. Okay. Noticeably, the number of visitors experienced there a steady increase through the years, peaking at an impressive 2 million visitors, 2 million guests by 2017, overtaking their counterpart tourists staying in a given island by the middle of 2015. Okay, that's it. That's the end of that particular graph. No? Yun. So 2 sentences siya, guys. 1 sentence for the circle, and then 1 sentence for the there. Do you understand? 1 sentence for the circle, and then 1 sentence for the arrow with sing it. Okay, sing it there. And then ito naman 3 sentences, no, one, tapos slight increase, and then okay, from there up to there. Yeah, that's the second sentence. Or from there up to there. Yan. Third sentence ko, yung yan, slight fluctuation towards the final 2 years. That's the third sentence. Okay. Meanwhile, for tourists whose preference was staying on an island, figures began, so simple past, at a higher 1.5 million visits. Maintaining this range the following year. All right? Yun na yung dalawang yan, guys. However, there was a visible uptick where numbers had risen. So past perfect na, no? And plateaued. Yan. Had risen, ano to, 1.5 million, and had, 3/4 million pala yun, guys. Began at a higher 750,000 pala yun. 750,000 visits there. Maintaining this range the following year. Okay. However, there was a visible uptick where number had risen and where numbers had doubled na lang. By, tama ba? Doubled eh, kasi 1.5 million, no? By 2013, maintaining this impressive range. Did I use impressive already? Wala. Okay. For the following 2 years. Notwithstanding, yon. So, you notice, no, how markers lead the reader, no? So, itong meanwhile indicates na pupunta naman tayo sa bagong line. Parang ganun, ano? Itong however indicates na nagkaroon ng change in the trend. Yun, an improvement. Tapos ito naman marks the negative change that happened after, no? Notwithstanding, visits inexplicably dropped. Yan. Drop to, babanggitin ko to guys, by a 250,000. Kasi 250,000 yung drop, di ba? 1.5 million naging 1.250 million. Wait. Allowing visitors to cruise liners to overtake to outnumber them at this point before fortunately ending the survey at the same 1.5 million visitor range. Okay. That's it, guys. And then doon na lang ako sa this one, the combined, no? Combining the figures for both respondents. It is, what's that word that we just used as the word of the day? Unassailable. Unassailable ba yan, guys? Yung something like unassailable. Yung hindi mo pwedeng, you cannot. It is I forgot the word. It is an unassailable trend that visitor count experienced a positive rising trend throughout. Most especially, yan, dito na tayo. Ayun, i-number lang natin. From 1 million to nearly 3 million. From 1 million visitors to nearly 3 million. Uy guys, anong word to? What word is this? Uy, tingnan nyo nga. Nasa word of the day yun eh. Unassailable. I forgot. I want to use that word, guys. I'll use it in my speaking test.
Immutable, is that the word?
Immutable. It is an immutable trend. Oh my God. Ano pa yung Sheila? May isa pa eh. Unassailable, immutable. I'll use those words. Here. Immutable. To nearly 3 million in 6 years. Before witnessing the most massive jump, dash, a million visitors towards the final year of the survey. Yan. Little did anyone know a pandemic was already brewing. Wala magawa. Yeah. At which point, visitor count drop to 0. Well, damn, man. Okay, that's it. And I will save this, guys, send it to you. And then after this, mag-listening tayo. Wanna do a listening? Yarn. How many words is that? Dear. 251 words. I'm so proud. Ay, dapat 150 lang. Sobra. But that's okay. Better as long as you do not meet under 150 words. Okay. Line graph. Guys, I will point you out to something. So I noticed when I write, I use the power of the gerund strategically. Wait. A gerund is a verb acting like a noun. And a gerund always ends in an ing. It's a verb acting like a noun. So I will just, I'll just point this out to you. So we use gerunds to extend the sentence, thereby showing sentence complexity. So that's why you will notice it comes after a comma. Diba, guys? Pumapalo siya after a comma. Ayun, ayun yung comma. Ayun yung gerund. Do you understand? You use the gerund strategically, guys. And then notwithstanding, visits inexplicably dropped by 250,000. Nakita niyo yan, ano? And then nag-gerund na naman. Oh, diba? Beautiful. And then there's another gerund. Combining the figures for both ways, it is an immutable trend that visit count experience a positive. Ayun na naman si gerund. Do you follow? That's why the gerund suddenly authorizes the extension of a sentence. So a survey was conducted between 2010 and 2017. Gerund time, measuring the number of visitors in a given Caribbean island. Gerund time, particularly subdividing tourists who vacation in a cruise liner versus those who spend time in an island. Do you understand? That's now 3 sentences. The gerund allows the grammatical extension of a sentence. And then, spice up mo pa with adverbs like that, particularly, diba? Like this one, the adverb, before, declining. In totality, all figures pointed to an increase, with tourists preferring, guys, cruise ships ostensibly rising over its counterpart, particularly towards the tail end of the survey. In detail, for visitors whose preference were in cruise liners, the number of visitors started off at 250,000 in 2010, doubling gerund time after a year before declining gerund time back to 2010 levels by 2012. Noticeably, the number of visitors experienced a steady increase throughout the years. Gerund time, peaking at an impressive 2 million guests by 2017. Gerund time, overtaking their counterpart tourists. Staying in a given island by the middle of 2015. Meanwhile, for tourists whose preference was staying on an island, figures began at 750,000 visits, maintaining this range the following year. However, there was a visible uptick where numbers had doubled by 2013. And I will just vary this, guys, sustaining this impressive range for the following 2 years. Notwithstanding, visits inexplicably dropped by 250,000, allowing visitors to cruise liners to outnumber them at this point, before fortunately ending the survey at the same 1.5 million visitor range. Combining the figure for both respondents, itong this one, guys, no? Gerund yan eh, no? I saw that also a while ago. So, in that case, the gerund was in the start of a sentence, no? Saan ko na siya nakita? Hindi ko na siya nakita. Ito, guys. Ang original location yan is after the comma. It is an immutable trend that visitor count experience a positive rising trend throughout, combining the figures for both respondents. Nakita niyo yan? That's the gerund eh, no? That's the gerund clause, di ba? Pero ang nangyari, kasi ang origin talaga ng gerund is after the main sentence, no? Subject, verb, object yun, sentence, SVO sentence yun. Papasok si gerund doon. Yan, parang ganito. That's why they come after the comma, eh, no? Do you follow? They come after the comma. Pero in this case, instead of applying the same pattern, ginawa na lang natin, hinarap natin si gerund before the SVO sentence. Yun. Nilagay natin siya dun sa unahan. So, that's what you call a topicalization in linguistic studies. No? Parang you made it a topic or focalization. It is an immutable trend that visitor count experience a positive writing trend throughout from 1 million visitors to nearly 3 million in 6 years. Gerund time before witnessing the most massive jump, 1 million visitors towards the final year of the survey. Don't forget the gerund, guys. In fact, pag sanay na sanay ko si gerund, lalabas yun sa speaking. No? And parang feeling mo, tapos na yung sentence, pinasok mo pa yung gerund. No? Diba? Parang, for example, I think that it really is better to live in a house because for the main reason that blah, 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 and blah, 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 blah. Kala mo tapos na, no? Tapos pinasok mo yung gerund. While comparing those, di ba? Hindi pa pala tapos. While comparing those who are renting houses, mga ganun, di ba? That applies to speaking as well. Okay. So let's save this thingy. Line graph. This is, what is this, guys? Cambridge. What is this? Cambridge 15 ba tayo?
Yes, 15.
Cambridge 15. What test is this? Test 2. Cambridge 15, test 2. Cambridge 15, test 2, task 1. And then let's upload this thingy over YouTube. Here. You like the gerund, guys? You like it? You learned a lot, gerund. Sinabi ko lang YouTube, wala na nagsasalita. That's one way to get the students to be quiet. You tell them that this is going to be uploaded over YouTube. Quack, quack, quack. Writing workshop. There. Task 1. Then line graph. Line graph. Cambridge 15. Test 2. Task 1. There. Okay, let's end the recording first, guys. Let's end the recording first, and then let's do listening. Or wait, I want to look at the task 2, guys. But let's end the recording first. Ending.